Hey y'all, it's Gabe here, and today is basically part of Transgender Awareness Week. So I wanted to take the time to tell a little bit about my story, and maybe it might inspire others to stand up and fight for what's right, or be inspired to partake in their own journey, because I feel like I haven't really talked about my transition story and like how I discovered I was trans and like how I suffered through all my hardships and everything. So I thought I would sit down and actually take the time to talk about my story and how I discovered I was trans. So let's turn back the clock to January 2014, where I recently graduated with a bachelor's degree in psychology, which is not what I no longer want to study, surprisingly, but I can't say it's a useless degree. I still don't regret it. But anyways, my first encounter of the transgender word was back in sophomore year of college. There was a queer student union club or whatever that met every Thursday. So right after I finished class, I went over there, and it was like the first meeting of the semester, and everybody was introducing themselves. And while they never said the word outright, I know that's what some of the people that were introducing themselves were talking about. Because I remember when people were going up to introduce themselves, they were saying, "Hi, my name is this, but in this space, please use these pronouns and also this name, because I don't feel safe using my preferred name and my pronouns outside of this safe space." And I didn't really understand what that meant. And back in the day, I wasn't necessarily ignorant, but in my mind I was saying like, okay, that doesn't make sense to me, but oh, if that's what you want, alright. I mean, I didn't really understand what that meant. Now looking back, I was like, oh, that person was transgender, or at least gender non-conforming of some sort, and I didn't really understand. Like, I probably, if I stayed in that space, which wasn't very welcoming in my opinion, but then again, I was like a very awkward potato back then. I still am, but to a lesser degree. I only went for like 3 meetings and I stopped going because I didn't feel safe and didn't really make any friends, but that's a problem that I'm still trying to address. I have a problem with hanging out with people that I don't understand or aren't a part of. I've never been a part of the LGBT scene until now. So when people have transitioned from one LGBT scene to another, from like lesbian or bisexual to the transgender scene, it's like a smooth transition. But for me, who was part of the straight community, even though I identify as a lesbian, although it was a very isolated lesbian, I don't really mesh well with other trans people who've been a part of the scene for many years. Well, I'm just starting to really break into there, and I'm just like, I'm not accustomed to that culture. But that could also be why I don't live in Brooklyn, and I don't live anywhere near Brooklyn, so it's like any event that happens over there is kind of like out of my way. So I'm very isolated as a result. I'm still trying to work through that. But anyways, back to the story. So past by to like when I graduated college, I was very unsure what I wanted to do. I was thinking all through my college years like, oh, it'll come to me, and next thing I know, I'm graduating with a diploma in my hand and with a freaking graduation wardrobe and my cap and gown and all that, and I'm taking pictures with my parents with a smile that clearly says, oh my god, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing with my life. So I found myself trying to find a job because I feel like, well, I'm out of college, I might as well find one, because how else am I going to make my living? And I had a hard time finding one. I don't know if it's because of how uncomfortable I presented myself and it showed other people, but whatever the case it was, my mom managed me to get me a job at some franchise therapist clinic or some sort that they have different locations. So I was stationed in one location. That was my first job. I was supposed to be secretary for a therapist or psychoanalysts and all that, and basically, you know, take in patient intakes, jot down people, charge co-pays, those kind of things. And I was very ill prepared for the job, not so much because I didn't know what I was doing, but like I wasn't prepared to know what I was doing because it was a high volume place. No one actually sat down and took the time to actually train me, so I was basically set up to fail from the start. And I only lasted at that job for 6 weeks, and apparently I was that bad, and the other secretary that was with me just couldn't be bothered to train me. And so I was in a very depressed stupor because not only did I lose my job, I also managed to get a letter from my first choice graduate school for social work saying like, I'm sorry to say that you are not accepted. So despite the letter of statement of purposes, the recommendation letters and all that, I was not accepted into that program. And so I fell into a depressed induced stupor. I basically spent my time barely going to the gym. I barely went anywhere outside my house. I was just stuck on the computer trying to like feel sorry for myself, and at some point during my stupor I ran across the word transgender, and for the first time I felt really curious as to what that meant, but it resonated with me in a way I couldn't understand then. So I was a psychology student. I had access to like search engines, so I looked up what that meant. I started to do some studies, and I came to a point where I was like, okay, so I might be transgender. What do I do now? I don't exactly look like I would pass under any circumstance because I basically sounded like this.
I'm not sure whether to feel excited about my appointment at Callan Lord, it being 2 days away, or scared.
But it was also a matter of appearance, and I didn't bother really changing my appearance yet because as a Hispanic trans Latino, it was very hard for me to like just change my appearance without them noticing and be like, oh my god, why did you cut your hair? What is this? Well, like, what's going on? And like, I really didn't want to open that can of worms yet and during these circumstances, being how religious and very stringent gender roles are. So the way I was forced to wear earrings and like makeup and like get my hair done a certain way and get those haircuts, they basically forced me to go to the hair salon with them, and I was literally almost in my early 20s, and they still forced me to go because they wanted to make sure that my hair was properly done. So as a result, like, I have so much more freedom now than I used to back in the day, where they like made sure I had like the right dresses, I was pretty. I gotta make sure I'm not like they're in a saving face and for whatever reason, and that I'm responsible for how they appear to the public. So there was a lot of really high expectations for me, and I really felt uncomfortable with that, and that's why I didn't really care what I looked like, because no matter what, I was not gonna look how I was seeing myself in the mirror. It wasn't a matter of me hating my body, it was basically making sure other people saw what I saw. It's just like everything else, my body does need a lot of work. Most stuff that's worth doing needs work. So that was like the way I saw my body. So like even now, like even though I want top surgery, I'm not like, oh my god, I really hate myself. I just wish those things weren't there, but there's really nothing I can do about that. So I basically went from denial to eventual resignation of, okay, this is my situation, what can I do to change it or maybe improve the quality of my life? So I was looking for a gender therapist because during my research, it turns out like hormones could change the body, because for like about 2 weeks until I discovered that, after I discovered I was trans and everything, I was like, okay, well, how am I gonna get people to use pronouns like that and use a preferred name, which I didn't have at that point. And turns out, like, I had a friend, Logan, you guys met him already. We actually went to college together. We were at the same club. It was a Japanese anime club or something like that. But we never actually talked until like I came out as trans, which is very funny. Like, I knew he was pre-T then, and he was using a very masculine name and masculine pronouns, and I never understood why even then, because it was like sophomore year, I wasn't very aware of this. But now it all made sense once I met him again, and he was like a year on T. I was like, oh my god, your voice sounds so much different than what I imagined. Because we were Facebook friends, but we never really talked. So he decided to help me out when I wrote a status on my Facebook saying like I'm looking for a gender therapist, because that seemed to be like the most traditional route at that point in 2014. Like, informed consent clinics wasn't really a big thing, at least not that I've heard about. So he offered to like accompany me to this clinic that he found. He got informed consent, he didn't have to see a therapist. He had to go like for a few sessions, but like there was like no gatekeeping of any kind. So I wasn't able to go to the youth program because I just turned 22 and their cutoff point is 21, and if I went 2 weeks earlier I might have gotten in and would have saved myself some money, but either way, it wasn't meant to be apparently. So I went, I filled out the application, they asked for a preferred name. I didn't even think about it at that point, so off the top of my head I wrote Benjamin. Like, I was just like, okay, let me just write Benjamin, because why not? I really don't want to hear my name at all. So I wrote that down, I changed my name eventually, and 2 weeks later I got an initial blood work kind of thing. And they told me the earliest appointment that they could give me was 3 months later, which was the darkest point in my life, where I had to vicariously live through other people that were going through medical transition on YouTube to be able to cope properly and pretend that I was those people going through those changes. Like basically living vicariously through other people who were already on that physical journey, while I had to wait until the doctor was finished with their waiting list and all that. So that was a very dark period in my time, but once I got on T, despite not being like 100% like gender binary anymore, I still don't regret going on T. I might have chosen like low dose T if I knew what I knew now, but I still don't regret it. I love my beard, I love the way I look. I'm very confident in myself. Not as confident as I would like to be, but definitely more confident than I used to be, and I really carry myself a lot more proudly when I walk around, and like it shows. Like I had more job offers, I seem more successful, but I don't know if that's a result of me getting slightly higher self-esteem or that's just male privilege. I can't really differentiate between the two. But that is how I got on this journey that is T, and it's brought so many friends. I got my best friend Logan as a result of this journey. I met so many great people, like leaders and community folks, and it's just amazing. It all seems like a far-off dream now, because I never thought I would be surrounded by people who love me. It seems like a story like Naruto, who had nobody except his teacher Iruka, and all of a sudden, like, he's surrounded by people who love him, like supporters and everything, and he became Hokage. I'm still not at Hokage level yet, but that's basically the sentiment I feel. That's my story. So yeah, that's all I wanted to share. Please hang in there. If you need someone to talk to, like I said, I'm only a message away on Instagram. You could also comment here. I'll be willing to talk. I'm also on Twitter, so follow my social media links if you need someone to talk to. I'm all ears. I know what it's like to be afraid, and especially in the face of a possible Trump presidency, things are starting to look pretty dark. So yeah. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the story. Give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe if you haven't already. I put out a video like twice a week mostly, but I think I might leave it down to once a week because I want to improve my videos, and that takes time. Anyways, I hope you guys have a good week, and yeah, I'll see you guys real soon.